you're ready for raised gable trim. Let's talk about that.
Okay, what I've done here on my gable assembly, I created a little cleat that I put on prior to installing the panels. Basically, I started with my drip edge, then I installed this gable cleat. So that's going to basically act as a cleat for a gable cap, but also is an overall assembly where I'm actually going to strengthen up the entire fastening of this last panel. And again, because the perimeter zones are worried about wind resistance, I want to make sure I have a good tight block assembly here. So what I've done with this particular panel, I've taken a Z closure, and then that same butyl tape that was just mentioned by Jerry, I'm going to put it on the back side of the panel. And what I'm going to basically do, I'm going to be adhering it to the panel. As you can see, it's nice and sticky and real tacky. But with this one, I ran fasteners down through the panel to the substrate. I want to basically fully encapsulate or fully compress that butyl material so I don't prevent any migration of water within the seam. The fasteners that I'm running through, I'm also running through the butyl tape material. So they're basically, that the threads, there's no holes through here. Now, this is a little bit different than what I would do with a clip fastened standing seam, whereas I wouldn't penetrate with a clip with longer panel lengths. I still want that panel to move. Here I have very limited amount of movement because we're dealing with much shorter lengths. So I would actually come up with a fastener or a rivet through the back side and just assemble this Z closure to the panel itself to allow movement. So I might do things differently with one standing seam system versus another. But one thing I like to do is check after, unfortunately I'm in sales but also involved in the technical side. I have to get called out in jobs. Somebody's having a leak problem. Why is it leaking? One of the first things I do, I just take a little spatula and kind of go around all my perimeter zones to make sure they have this butyl material between these two different mating parts of metal. Basically, I'm a rule of thumb I use, anytime you have metals that are in contact with each other, they should be separated with some of this butyl tape material. That's kind of what I want to do, and just make sure my little spatula doesn't go through. So that's kind of like my first thing I look at whenever I go out on those so-called problem jobs. But from there, I'm going to be taking a separate cap that I'm going to be locking into my Z closure and basically snapping it in to the whole gable assembly. I'm going to leave this one a little bit loose and my full piece a little bit loose because I have to take it apart after this session and do it all over again. But once this is snapped on, it's tight, and I know basically nothing's going to happen to my first panel, because obviously my first panel lets go, then another panel is going to let go. So I want to make sure everything's tight at my eave, my gables, and you'll also see in a little bit how I'm going to kind of really fasten the ridge assembly or the peak assembly as well. I want to mention real quickly too, you'll see some masking on these panels. Typically, any painted roll form standing seam metal panel will have some sort of masking applied at the factory. That typically protects the panels during the transportation process. It is imperative you take this off as you go, or as you're installing the panels or prepping the panels. As you can see, I can pretty much pull that right off. If this thing sits in the sun for about a week, it's going to get real stretchy. And lo and behold, about a month and a half or 2 months later, you're going to get a call from your homeowner and say, something's wrong with my roof. I can see these funny looking cloudy stripes on it. They're going to call you back and realize, oh geez, my guys forgot to get masking off. And I always tell everybody, hope you have a good set of fingernails, because that's about what you're going to need to take that off, because it just won't pull off. There's nothing that I know that's going to remove that. So always be aware. We get calls almost on a monthly basis, but there's always 1 or 2 a month that somebody forgot to pull the masking off. So it's typically on the trims as well as the panels themselves.